Welcome to the Beyond Divorce Embracing Change podcast. My name is Michael Flores, and I will be your host while we explore the complex journey of divorce with empathy, insight, and practical knowledge. Whether you're contemplating separation, in a divorce, or looking for support post-divorce, our episodes provide expert guidance, stories, and strategies to help you through every step of the process. We are actual therapists, helping clients who sit on our couches every day through their difficulties of divorce. You are not alone. Join us as we delve in and find solutions that give you hope again. We're glad you're here.
This podcast is not intended to replace legal or personal help. This podcast is for informational purposes only.
Thank you, everyone, for coming back to this Ation series that we have. We're actually talking about alienation. This is the big one, isn't it? This is like the drum roll of, Now, here's what I'm worried about, though. Do you suppose people are listening to this one right here? They skipped the triangulation and parentification, went straight to this one.
I hope they didn't.
I hope they didn't either, because I think they're going to miss out on the progression of how it gets to this place. So if you did, please go back and listen to those. I don't want to give you extra work. I just want to really make sure you get the right information. However, we are really going to dive into this alienation thing today.
I think between you and I think we're going to go. We're going to go into it.
We're going to get into
We're going to go.
Yeah. We're going to hit the tip of the iceberg, or are we hitting the base?
We're going to go as much as we can into it.
Do as much as we can. I know this is a topic that can be discussed probably extensively more than once and may require us to do that. But today we really want to make sure we hit hard with that. So welcome back, everyone. Thank you for being here. However you're choosing to find us, we're just glad you're here. And thank you so much. And Armando, I'm glad to do this one with you.
No, I'm excited.
So I think we jump right into it.
Okay.
Before we talk about alienation specifically, how often do you hear it come up?
All the time.
When you say all the time, like, is this a daily occurrence? Is this a weekly occurrence?
I mean, definitely weekly. I would say daily. It depends on if there's court clients or not. But I think for the most part, hearing the word parental alienation or alienation is pretty common. I mean,
then you get PAS syndrome,
which we'll talk about.
Okay.
We'll talk about that.
We'll hit that. Okay. So I have to ask this. Have you had a scenario where both parents were claiming alienation from the other one?
Absolutely.
Yeah. So the one saying, I'm being alienated by them, they're going, no, they're alienating me.
Absolutely.
Okay. I was just wondering if it didn't just happen like on one side of the
coin.
No,
alienation is that Bigfoot. It's that I want to catch that on. I'm going to catch it on camera. I'm going to get it right. We're looking for it.
The Sasquatch.
The Bigfoot. But is it actually out there? Maybe not.
Wow. Now, so we're going to answer the question whether or not alienation really exists, or is it a pattern of behavior?
Ooh, we can talk about that.
I like
I'm
it.
Excited.
Yeah, I told you this can get really good, really fast. Okay, so maybe we start with what is parental alienation. Maybe if we define what it is, maybe we're describing something that exists.
Yeah. So typically you'll hear, I hear it as alienation, but specifically parental alienation, right? So parental alienation is when one parent manipulates or tries to influence a child to reject the other parent, right? So, I mean, simply I'm trying to ruin the relationship with you, if you're the child, with the other parent.
Do you suppose that maybe that parent's also trying to preserve a relationship by alienating the other parent?
I think it stems from that. I think it can stem from that. I think it can stem from two things. I think it can stem from that, and I can also think it stems from my unresolved hate, my unresolved anger, my unresolved fear projected that way.
Do you suppose that that's what alienators really are? They're just unresolved things or fear-based things that are being projected down and played out in a system?
Absolutely.
Well, there it is.
That's what it.
That's the depth of it, isn't it? Of what? Because I think people want to know, like, why would they? They're doing this to get them to hate me, or they have so many assumptions of why the alienator's doing it, but the root of it all is based in the fact that the alienator is resolving something within themselves, either based in a fear of losing something, right, or having an alignment of sorts, like I hate them. Right. And I don't want you to like them, so I'm going to alienate you from them.
Right. I'm putting a wedge in there.
Yeah. What's the most common, in your opinion, when you hear the claim of alienation, what's the most common? Do you think it's the fear base? They don't want to lose? Or is it the other one where they hate me so much?
I think the they hate me so much is the big flashy one.
And they're trying to get my kid to hate me.
I think that one's the one that everybody tries to sell and kind of, especially if we're talking about cases that are in court or litigation, those are the big ones that, every lawyer's chomping at the bit to get, I mean, I don't know how many times I've been on the phone call with an attorney and they ask like, well, is there any alienation going on from the other side? Like, and when they say that, they want the big, like, you're talking crap about the other parent. You've got, a dartboard with the ex-parent, with the spouse's face on there, throwing daggers and throwing axes at it, like those kinds of things. But I think it's the fear-based one that is more subtle and more insidious.
Ooh, what do you mean by insidious?
Because that's where you plant the seeds. That's where it's that slow burn that kind of grows up and that can turn into something. And we can get into that a little bit later, but that one is something that I've noticed where maybe they did when they were younger, whenever they were the heat of the divorce or the heat of litigation, and they've stopped. But the seeds are planted and they've stopped. They're not doing anything now, but the damage is done.
Correct. So if we jump into how does alienation typically, let's do it two ways. Let's talk about how it impacts the relationship between the parents. If a parent assumes alienation is present, how does it impact their relationship parentally? But also, how does it impact the child?
So I think, before we get into that, let's break it down into two types of alienation.
Oh, yeah.
Because there are two types of alienation, right? Because there's the direct alienation and indirect.
Okay.
And so direct is, again, that big flashy, like, in your face, like, your dad's crap, I hate him, he's, your mom is XYZ, whatever word you want to fill in the blank with.
You want to know what your dad did to me?
Mm-hmm. Let me tell you.
Or your mom.
Let me tell you about who your dad really is. Or let me tell you who your mom really is. It's that very overt, in-your-face, direct.
Yes.
And that's the one we typically think of, right?
When you think of alienation, absolutely.
Alienation.
Yep.
Indirect alienation, I think, is one that's not always done on purpose. And that's the insidious one. That's the one that's like the little earworm. That's the one where you get like, oh, you came back from Dad's house? What did you have for dinner? Oh, you just had candy? You had donuts for breakfast? That's it? Okay, donuts, okay. Did you feel safe there? Okay, good. You felt okay there. Good, I'm glad. Okay.
Are you okay?
Are you okay? What is that? What are we doing?
Well, I don't know. It's like, I'm just checking on my kid.
That's coming out of a place of wanting to protect, right? And make sure that kid is safe. But what is my implication? What am I implying?
Exactly. I think there's that. The indirect is an insinuation.
Yes.
And people forget that. Like they're crafty alienators, I used to call them crafty alienators, because here's why I have a problem. If you tell someone, when you ask your kid if they're okay, when there's no reason other than you just want to know, because they haven't presented anything to you that would let you know of the fact that they're not. Or here's a good one. Do you have a pretty good relationship with your kid? Yeah. If they weren't okay, would they tell you?
Yeah, of course.
Then why are you asking them?
Why are you asking?
Because you're not okay.
Mm-hmm.
And so you're saying, are you okay? Because you're not okay. And if they go, yeah, I'm fine. But they may say, well, and then here's the fun one. Are you okay?
Are you okay?
And then the kid goes, yeah, I'm fine. And you go, are you sure?
So I think that's where the indirect that I give a little bit of grace or leeway with the indirect. I'm like, okay, maybe you just don't know what you're doing.
Oh, correct. Continue on that.
So it's maybe you're not understanding, like it's coming out of a place of like fear, but you want to protect the kid. I'm just making sure. I'm just asking if they had fun. I'm just asking how it went. Mm-hmm. But what are you implying, right? Words have meanings and words are powerful. And so
say that again.
Words have meanings and words are powerful. And so the way you ask or the way you say something can influence the way a kid thinks. And so I think it's important that, and I'm guilty of this. I say some out-of-pocket stuff without thinking sometimes. And let me tell you, I get in trouble, right? I'm sure you said things out of pocket without thinking, and it's been brought to your attention by your wife or other people.
Why did you say wife first? What do you?
I'm just saying. But sometimes we say things without realizing how it comes across or what the meaning is, and we need to be redirected. And if I ever hear a parent, saying something or doing something that I'm like, ooh, I always say, look, I just want you to be careful because I don't want for the other side or somebody to say that you're alienating, or there even to be an appearance that you're doing that. So let me point that out to you.
Yeah, I think the question, like, what are you hoping to accomplish with that question, or what were you trying to ensure? And you're right. I think the indirect alienators insinuate things without recognizing the insinuation, and I think that's where therapy is really helpful for the alienator. I've wondered. I'll ask you this: if a court believes that a child has been alienated or being alienated, and so they then court order reunification between the alienated parent and the child, do you think that it would make most sense to send the alienating parent to individual counseling to learn their behaviors and what they might mean?
Absolutely.
It doesn't happen enough, but I think it would be very powerful if there was a two-pronged deal. If we do reunification with this parent and this child, then by default, the other parent should be involved at some level in the therapeutic process to understand what role they play and how it could be influencing this.
So that's something that sometimes I make parents upset about, because if I have a case that I'm, where I'm reunifying a child and a parent, I ask for everybody to be there at that first session. So
that's pretty common practice for us here, isn't it?
Because what I want is I want to meet everybody, and
see the system.
I want to see the system and that non-reunifying parent. I want to kind of have a conversation with them.
But I can't be in the room with them.
You know what? I'm going to ask it. And if you can't, that's okay. If you really can't because there is, a temporary restraining order, or there is a history of domestic violence or something, we can talk about it, but I'm going to meet you. Because we need to.
Yeah, we're meeting. We got a kid.
I want to make sure what's going on, because what's going to happen, that reunifying parent is going to come in and tell me what? You're alienating me.
Exactly.
This other parent is alienating me. So let me sit down and find out. And what I tell, just like I use the Bigfoot Sasquatch example, that's what I'll tell a parent. I'll say, look, you're coming in here and tell me that they're alienating you. Do you believe what you see or what you hear?
Ooh.
Right? So I don't know, but you're going to tell me that. I don't believe in Bigfeet. I don't believe in Sasquatches. So, but if you tell me there is, I'm going to go out into the woods, and if I see tracks, I'll be like, okay, what's this? Follow it. Go into a clearing, and I see a Bigfoot, I'll come back and be like, oh, you were right.
Well, we have to make a good therapeutic impression, and the only way to do that is really to engage the system.
Exactly.
Yeah, I get that. And I think what's interesting, in all the years I've done this, I've only had one parent admit to me that they were alienating on purpose.
Oh.
Like literally said, yeah, I'm doing it. I'm not going to stop.
Oh, wow. Surprised they actually did it. But
Well, they probably don't know how much respect I had in that. See, an authentic person, I can help more. I can help with authentic. Now, you can say, I'm doing this, I'm not going to change it. Even though it's an authentic answer, it really sucks because I can't help. However, I at least have a level of respect of knowing where we are.
Right.
But it's not common. And I think a lot of it is because I think the parent's agenda may not be to really keep them from the other parent, not realizing that they are. Makes sense? And because I do believe that there is an indirect way that's happening.
And I think it goes back to that fear-based, right? Like, if I truly fear that that other parent is unsafe, what am I? How am I doing that? How am I engaging the system to do that? Maybe I'm just venting. Maybe I'm just speaking like, oh, this one time, when your dad got drunk, and I keep picking on dads, but like, or your mom got drunk and she hit me or she did this. What am I doing? Yeah. Right. I'm not saying your dad is a bad person. I'm just I'm just being honest. How many times have you heard that? I'm just being honest with them.
I hear it all the time, but then it goes back to that question we said in the last episode of Parentification, which is, is this about you or them?
Or what are you trying to get at by telling them that?
What are you going to accomplish there? Like I said, I mean, there's two different relationships that are occurring. There's a relationship you had as a spouse. There's a relationship they have as a parent. I asked a kid this question when they were with the alienation thing. I was like, if I want to know what kind of dad you have, should I ask you or your mom? If I want to know what kind of mom you have, should I ask you or your mom? You or your mom, or you or your dad? Or like, who should I ask about who the other parent is? Well, of course, the kids usually say me.
Right.
And I said, so who's the only one that truly gets an opinion about what kind of parent they have?
The kid.
The kid gets to have, and when the kid realizes, wait, it's my opinion. It's not how my mom feels about my dad or my dad feels about mom. I get to choose that. it's a re-empowering of the kid. And really, that's almost the best thing that I've learned to do with a child who is being alienated, where I may never stop it.
Right. Because you don't.
What power do I have to stop alienation?
And I think that's where you have to listen for the signs. You got to know what you're listening for. What are those examples, right?
Do you suppose we should do signs or impacts? Impact of alienation, or should we do signs of alienation?
Which one first?
Yeah.
We should talk about both. Let's talk about signs first, and then we can talk about how that can impact.
Okay.
Right. So you said something about who should I ask about how your dad is, right? You asked the kid.
Yeah. If I don't know what kind of dad you have, who should I ask?
What's so interesting is I've asked a kid that before. I was like, tell me about your dad. How was your dad acting? He's like, well, you should really ask my mom. She remembers more than I do.
That's a sign.
That's what is that a sign of? When you hear that, what immediately triggers in your brain?
When a parent is used as a recollection for the child to fill in gaps of memory, that typically is a sign of alienation. That means that they speak and I follow their lead.
Mm-hmm. I have an agenda. I was given an agenda. Or I was given something, and I can't remember it. So
let them come in to remember. There was a case where I think the therapist encouraged the parent to have a child story that they wrote for them about what the history it was, because the child couldn't remember. So the parent said that the therapist had told them to write a story about the kids' childhoods to help them have recall.
Mm-hmm.
And it was about the abuse that they experienced with the father. And I was like, so you're telling me the therapist encouraged you to alienate the child from the parent that they don't even remember?
They don't remember this? Yeah.
Yeah, you don't remember the abuse you went through, so I'm going to go ahead and read you the story about it. I'm going to make a story for you that shows you what we experienced. Yeah, using a child, I think a sign of that is using the child or the child's having to need the parent to have recall.
Right.
That's typically something like, we got an uh-oh here.
I think that is definitely something, and I think the other one, and you kind of referenced that too, but like all of a sudden, there's this sexual abuse that has happened out of nowhere.
Yeah, there's layers built into it. I've actually told people that's usually the last sign for me is like this unaccounted or recollection, like all of a sudden we didn't recollect it, of sexual abuse.
Yeah,
like at the end of it, and so when you hear that, I'm like, okay, hold on, no, we went down this whole path, and now at the very end we're going, oh, what about this?
Mm-hmm.
That's a bigger issue too,
right?
Yeah.
Right. Or even when it's like, oh, I remember when I was like 2 or 3 that my dad did this to me.
When your brain can't usually recollect anything unless you're a savant.
And the question is, how do you remember that? Oh, my mom told me. Or my dad told me that story about my mom when she was like...
I'm impressed. Most 2 and 3-year-olds don't remember.
But you remember that? Yeah. And I think that's where that's kind of a sign of something,
sure.
Right? That's a sign of the kid being utilized or used to kind of...
Is that a sign of what it looks like or how it sounds?
How it sounds. Yeah. See, so if you're hearing something like that, that's
so what does alienation look like?
I mean, I think it looks like recordings, right? When one child is recording the other parent, and it's like, well, why are you...
The little investigator.
The little investigator, the little spy, right? The extension of recording everything. And I think parents have to be very careful about that, right? Because, sometimes they're like, well, I'm just recording to keep myself safe. So what are you telling your child when they record that other parent? They're not safe, that they need to record to be safe.
It's the implication.
It's that implication.
Wow. So then what do parents do in that? What you're telling me is alienation is stemming from a place of a parent feeling that the child may be unsafe. This relationship that exists with this parent is unsafe. It's not conducive. It's going to go bad. I want to protect my kid, right?
There's that fear that...
Right. Or there's that disdain for that other parent, that level of hate,
right?
Of what they did to me was so wrong, and how dare they? And this child becomes their chess piece, right? Their trophy.
Yes,
of sorts.
They're trying to win it. They're trying to take them in, or they're fearful that they're going to take that child from me.
Well, that's the fear base.
It's all fear. I think it all stems from the fear.
You know what I hate about alienation, though, is if you're engaged in alienation, you're afraid you're going to lose your kid. You're going to lose your kid because when you're alienating, I think you're putting the child in a position where the child will eventually learn that the hate was stronger than the love. Mm. And so they grow up, and when they have an issue with you, which they will because they're human, they're going to use the same thing you taught them to use against the other parent, which is hate. So they end up hating you.
I mean, I ask that question all the time. I'll have a kid in session with their parent, and I'll say, "Do you think your mom's love for you is stronger than her hate for your dad?" Or the reverse, is your dad's?
Can they answer that?
The kids will. The kids will answer it, and it is a gut punch when a child says, "Oh no, my parents' hate for the other parent is way stronger than my love," or it's like right above it. It's a gut punch. But this sounds kind of messed up, but I love it because what it does is it takes everything away and it really kind of shines a light on, look at what's going on here.
Yeah, exactly. It puts a spotlight on it.
It puts a spotlight on it. And
do you think that's the only thing that really, Armando, that really kind of helps people see the impact is you have to put a spotlight on it?
I think it does. I think it helps because I think when you're in it and you're in that fear, right? Fear makes us dumb, right?
Yeah.
We're not thinking clearly. We're scared. And so putting a spotlight on it really kind of shows what is the impact of that, right? We're talking about the impact of the kid. It's destroying the relationship. Like, kids just want to love both parents. That's all they want to do.
Sure.
So it is kind of the opposite of normal to make them turn into hating the other parent.
Yeah. So what about a parent who claims they're being alienated? They're not being alienated.
Mm-hmm.
But they have made it in their mind that this is exactly what's happening. You go in, you do your work, realize that's not what's happening here. But that parent is dead set on the fact that it is.
Right. There's no there, as Janon likes to say.
There's what?
There's no there, right? Like there's nothing there. Like we're there, there's nothing there. There's no there.
It's Janon
That's
all
Janon,
the way,
yeah.
isn't it? There's no there.
And what happens is that parent then becomes like, okay, well, I'm going to fight back. And what do? They start alienating because
They respond to the alienation with alienation.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
I've seen that.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
You know, or they come in and they're fearful of like, oh, they're doing all this to me, and it's like, yeah, sir, ma'am, that's not alienation. That's just you guys not getting along. Like, I don't know what to tell you. That's not what this is, right?
That's not alienation.
That's just y'all don't get along. That's not.
Are you willing to get along?
But I mean, to some degree, that's what it is, right? And I think that's the fear is that we've thrown around the word alienation so much, right? It becomes this buzzword that if I can catch it or if I can label it as such, it becomes the catch-all. It is. I will tell you, for me, it's very difficult for me to sit or like testify and say, yes, this parent is alienating, right? Because I've tell people all the time, you know, it's walking like a duck and it's looking like a duck, doesn't quite sound like it yet, right? Or it's a goose. You know, I don't know yet. I can't say for sure.
Well, we created a list of alienating behavior.
Yes,
because we would rather as therapists say they're engaged in alienating behavior,
right,
versus they're alienating or they're an alienator, like labeling them as such, because it's really aimed at achieving a goal, right? So,
and that's where you run into what is it, parental alienation syndrome, right?
Tell us about that.
So that's actually a diagnosis code that they were trying to that different counselors, psychologists are trying to kind of get that labeled, but it's so difficult and it kind of colludes and but it kind of makes things difficult to see when it's more of just behaviors. And so rather than get mucked up in the weeds of, is it a disorder? Is it not a disorder? We're just talking about behaviors. Like, what are we seeing? Right.
It's a response to something else.
It's a response to something else. Like, we got enough labels out there. I don't know that we need to slap on another label.
What are some other examples, Armando, you think that parents should be aware of and say, hey, look, if you get a sense of this might be a representation of alienating behavior. And I think for them is check yourself, make sure you're not a participant in that. However, it could be coming from the other side, but these are some things you might want to look for. What are some other things that you would tell them to consider?
I think what it is when you are like purposefully bringing up old memories, right, from the past. Like out of nowhere, you're like, oh, remember that Christmas time?
It's usually negative.
It's usually negative, right? Like it's usually negative, right? It's like, have you ever had that person that like you go to dinner with and you're like, $5 says they're going to bring up their ex within the first 10 minutes. And sure enough, 10 minutes. Mm-hmm. You know, because it happens all the time because you know they're still stuck in it.
I'm sorry.
No, it's true though.
Because of yes.
Because you know, right? You've experienced this, and this is a personal thing. This isn't even therapeutic. And so when that happens, if they're doing that, What are they doing in front of those kids?
Well, here's the crazy thing, Armando. I mean, we've been in a position where they're bringing this out in the open with us. Can you imagine what's happening behind closed doors?
Yeah, they're trying to show their best version to us.
In most cases. So when your best version is alienative in nature, I can't even imagine what's happening when we're not around. And so another thing to look for is a constant recall of past memories that are typically negative in nature.
Yes, they're typically negative in nature.
Got it. Okay.
Right? And again, and here's the thing. Sometimes there's the validity to it, right? If there's a domestic violence, history,
sure.
How do you
when you said that I gotta give credit to this, and of course, for confidentiality reasons, I'll just say it this way. This person had come to me and said they had to stay at a shelter and everything. They got away from domestic violence. The person said, I know that my ex is not a danger to the child. I know they love the child. But I know that they've got some major issues.
Mm-hmm.
And they said their hopes in counseling. So this is the parent who would probably be more likely to engage in the alienation, is who I'm talking to, said that their hopes were that they never wanted their child to feel it was their responsibility to care for them, and that they wanted the relationship between that other parent and that child to be completely separate from anything they experienced in their marriage.
Wow.
And I literally thought, that's it.
Yeah.
That's what it's supposed to look like. I wish I could remember that person well enough to be like, hey, I need you to write that down.
Mm-hmm.
How did you get there? How did you help yourself heal in a way that you were allowing yourself for the relationship between the child and the other parent to naturally unfold?
Yeah.
Right? Like if the kid grows up and decides they hate their other parent, they did that on their own. You didn't create that. You were completely it was really a wonderful way she deneutralized the situation from her own history with her ex. And I don't know, I just remember hearing that goal that they wanted therapy to help be based on that for the kid. And I was like, wow, I got to work. And I will tell you the truth, even though that experience with the violence that they experienced, they still sat in the room with them.
Wow.
Because they didn't sit in the room as the ex, they sat in the room as the mom.
As the mom. Mm-hmm.
Is that not freaking awesome?
No, and I think that's
wearing a different hat.
That's a different hat, and I think that's what's hard, right? Is that
Yes.
again, it's that fear-based coming out of, and I think that's why parentification can lead into alienation.
Oh yeah,
it kind of can transform into that.
Yep. So maybe we can discern, you have triangulation, you have parentification, you have alienation. What's another, there's no doubt that is an alienating behavior. Anything else that looks like or sounds?
I mean, again, it's the direct, if they're directly saying, your parent is a piece of crap, right? That is clear. That is a very direct, clear kind of alienation, right? Or even if they're you're trying to schedule, it's possession time and you're trying to schedule things and the kids are never available, right? We're always on a trip. We're out of town.
Oh, yeah. Making them unavailable all the time. That's a sign.
Or especially in therapy, right? If we're doing reunification and they're never available, they always have something going on, And
they keep them busy.
They keep them. And I'm sympathetic. I get it. Kids are busy. They have a lot of things, but sometimes we can carve out 3 hours for you to miss school, come here, and go back, and it'll be okay.
So here's a very indirect sign. People that are watching the video probably will see this better, but the phone rings, right? And so I take the call and I go, hello? It's your mom.
Dad. Yeah. Mm-hmm. It's your mom. Mm-hmm.
It's your mom. Roll my eyes. It's your mom.
Who are you talking to?
Or they do that, breathe out. It's your mom. And then what is the kid seeing there?
They're seeing, again, it's that implication of oh, my mom hates my dad.
Yep. And if they're parentified, what the child will do is go, I have to protect. Why are you calling? Mom and I are trying to have.
Because they're protecting the feelings of that parent.
Exactly. There's your separation.
That's it.
Yep. There's your separation.
Another thing is whenever it's phone call time that, I'm talking to my other parent, and miraculously that other parent happens to just magically pop into my room and being like, oh, what are you doing? Or happens to be outside my door while I'm talking to that parent. How's that happen? I'll tell you the story. I did at a scenario where I had this kid and we did an experiment, and she was like, yeah, my mom's always listening, or my dad's always listening on the phone calls when I'm on with my mom. And I was like, oh, okay. And I was like, is it just that one or with your friends? And she's like, I don't know. And I was like, let's do an experiment. Call your friend, and if you're on your phone, see what your mom does. Sure enough, whenever she was on the phone with her friend, dad would walk by, kind of listen and be like, oh, and then just kind of dip out. But if she was on the phone with mom, dad was definitely like,
oh, he'd dip in and stay
in and stand in the doorway and be like, oh, I'm just waiting you to finish because I need you to do something. Almost always, yeah. And
reality trying to hear.
Yeah, and we did it for about a month. That was kind of our little experiment.
And that's alienation too.
It can be, because again, what does that implicate? Why are you listening to my phone call with my parent? Because you think they're not safe for you. What are they're going to do? They're going to try something.
Mm-hmm. I got to catch them before they do something to you.
Or there was something I've heard where it was like, well, I know how your dad is. So he's asking for this. So he's up to something.
It's funny you say that, because I heard a judge say this, and I never thought of it like this. Now they've been doing this work for tons of years, but a judge said, typically when a parent claims that they're being alienated, they're engaged in some behavior that put the other parent in the position to alienate.
Like defensiveness. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's almost like, if you're going to claim that this parent's alienating you, what are you doing, right? That is influencing the system to the point they feel the need to alienate you.
Yeah. I mean,
like, wow, that is a great ask, right?
And I think that's the thing, is that you get defensive, you push back.
Yeah.
And I think it starts with not seeing, windmills as giants, right? Like, you see the windmill and it's like, oh, they're doing something on purpose to get at me. It's like, no, they're just...
Well, what's interesting is, if you have a parentified child and you're claiming you're being alienated from that child, do you not realize you're pushing that child back into that parent more?
Mm-hmm.
Like, do you think kids, like, I told a parent that once, like, okay, so you think you're being alienated from this kid. Yeah. So if I told you that this kid is being parentified emotionally, this kid feels it's their responsibility to take care of that parent's emotions. And the more that you claim alienation of that parent, what does that child more likely want to do?
Protect that parent.
Protect that parent. And see, that cycle never...
And I think to break that cycle too is to ask yourself, like, oh, well, they're trying to do things to alienate me. And my question to them is always like, well, what is your relationship like with your child? Right? If I scale it 0 to 10, right? 10 great, 0 awful. Where is it? And the kid says, oh, it's an 8. And you're saying it's an 8. Okay. Oh, but mom's alienating me. Okay, well, she's doing an awful job at it. It's at an 8. Like, she's really bad at it.
Yeah, I actually have said that before.
No, I know. Yeah.
Like, if they're alienated, they're doing a horrible
job. They're not doing
this kid
good
really
at
loves
it,
that
right?
parent.
Well, they're talking bad about me.
For a child to love one and hate the other completely,
Mm-hmm.
that is typically like, okay, that's a telltale for me.
Right.
Like, I have complete hate for that parent. To me, that's a telltale. If that parent loves both parents...
Or that child loves both parents.
If that child loves both parents, to me, that's not a telltale sign that there may be alienation, but it's not working well, because the kid still loves both, right? The aim of it is for the hate to be, to spew. What I think is interesting is, in all the dynamics of alienation, I really want to know, what if you are a parent and you believe you are being alienated, what is the best thing you can do?
I think the best thing, what I tell parents is, be the best parent you can be, right? Because here's the thing, like, they're going to spin whatever narrative it is. So what do you believe? What you hear, what you see. So if every time I go over and we're having a great time, and you're consistent and you're predictable.
That goes back to security.
That goes back to security,
right? Triangulation.
Right?
We talked about that in Triangulation. Yeah.
I tell parents all the time, if you are consistent and predictable, that builds trust, that builds security. If you are that, then when mom or dad says something, you're like, that's not my parent. Like, I don't know.
Well, yeah, the first thing the kid's going to be is confused, but like, my experience with them versus what you said don't match.
That doesn't match, right? Like, what are you? I don't understand.
Exactly.
And so you create that therapeutic word, that cognitive dissonance, right? That's not matching.
Quit trying to convince them what something isn't or is, and show them what it is.
What it is, yeah.
Yeah. Show them who you are.
Show them who you are.
Bingo.
That's what I tell parents all the time.
Yep.
I told a mom that the other day. It was just like, just be a good mom. Because here's the thing. Are we ever going to be able to stop them from saying whatever they want in their home?
I don't think I can stop anybody.
No, right? And if you're the other parent, you can't go into that home and control that.
But I can help you build. I told someone, I can't take away your fear, but I can build confidence. I can build something, right? I can build it, but I can't take something away.
Right.
So if you're asking me to subtract something, I can't do that. But I think that's why they go to court. Remove them from the alienator. They want the subtraction. But that's not going to change anything. It's going to say, if you have a parentified child and you win and they pull them from the alienator,
it's going to just put them back because
you took me from my other parent. That's what the kid, and so they're like, well, what do I do? And I go, now you're asking the right question.
And I think,
what do you do? Right?
Yes. What are you doing?
Not what are they doing? What are you doing?
And I think that's the other thing to look at, is that sometimes you just, it's you don't connect with this child. It's not the other parent doing it. You just don't know how to connect with that child. You have a bad relationship with that child. It's not about alienation. It's just you learn how to play Roblox. I don't know what to tell you. Like, connect with that child.
I had a kid. I've had that. A kid comes in, parent says they're being alienated. When I talk to the kid just feels disconnected. And they're not being alienated. There's like, we don't agree. What was the other one I heard not too long ago was, I just wish that when I was at my dad's, my dad would not work so much. I wish I wasn't at my dad's. My dad wouldn't, he wouldn't be on the phone so often.
I wish my dad would spend time with me when I'm over there. Right.
Because time means love. Yeah.
I mean, I've done this where I've asked, I've had a parent in my office and I say, okay, well, what is your daughter like? Like, what are the 3 things that you could talk to her about anything? Go. List me those things. We struggled. We got one. And we struggled. And so then,
well, we know where we got to do the work.
And that's kind of thing. And then, but they were claiming the other parent was alienating. I'm like, I don't know if that's the case here.
One of the things I've told a parent who feels like they're being alienated, I said, why don't you be the parent the other one should be? Like, when you're trying to decide on what you should do, why don't you just be that? What you are hoping for the other one or expecting of the other parent, why don't you just become that? And that's your guide. Like, be who they should be. Like, well, I don't want to be flexible with the schedule. Well, would you like them to be that way? Yeah, be that for them.
Then do that for them.
Then do that for them. I don't want to. I know you don't. But then who's it about? You. And if they're being about themselves and you're being about you, then who's being about the kid? No one.
And what is the kid going to see?
100%. Well, the kid's got to point at one of you. Chicken or egg, right?
And I think that's the other thing to remember is that, I always tell parents, you play the long game, right? You play long term. How is this child going to remember this court case? How is this child going to remember this divorce? What are they going to think about? And so if you are the best parent, if you're the best version of yourself, that's what they're going to remember.
Let me tell the parents who think they're being alienated something here on that. If you believe you're being alienated and you take a super aggressive approach to try to stop the alienation or prove the alienation to the child, what do you suppose it looks like when that parent's that aggressive?
It looks like alienating. It looks like your dad's a bad influence. Your dad, and maybe dad is a bad influence, but you block them from their phone.
Because I don't want them to be alienated.
Because I don't want them to. I don't want them to be alienated.
But then I'm alienating them.
But you just block them on their phone.
Maybe it goes back to the Mel Robbins. Let them.
And what you do is you show them, because what are you in control over? Yourself. That's it.
So we said it again. How many podcasts have we had where we've said that same thing? Who are you in control of?
I don't know, probably a lot.
Yeah, I think it's a lot plus.
A lot.
Yeah, I agree. Armando, final thought.
The thing to remember is that just be careful about venting. Be careful about like the little seeds that you plant, whether it's intentional or unintentional. And if it's pointed out to you by somebody, listen to it. Really look at it, because again, even the venting can look like direct or indirect.
Be cognizant of your insinuations.
Be careful of your situations and your body language and your tone.
There's like a neutral way to say things or ask things, and there's a non-neutral, and it's inflected in your tone and in your nonverbals. If you're uncertain how to approach that, that's why we exist. We'd love to help you. I've had many parents reach out, and I've done individual therapy with parents to help them not engage in alienating behavior, or if they think they're being alienated, how can I respond in a better way?
Right. Know your triggers, right? Know if know your triggers.
Yeah. I think alienation is more of a navigation.
Ooh, yeah.
Yeah, I think when you're being alienated or you think alienation exists, it's more about how to navigate it versus everything else. Proving it, I think, is pointless. Navigating it makes more sense. It's like being mad at the storm when you're on the boat rather than learning how to sail in it.
Absolutely.
Goodness gracious,
I think the other thing to remember, too, is that kids just want to love both their parents.
In the end, that's all they really want to do.
They just want to love both their parents. They don't... Instilling hate or instilling, like, a disruption in their relationship with that other parent, that's unnatural. That's I think I used the word perversion of love in the other podcast, but
I think I told someone, I said, it's really hard to hate what you didn't love.
mm-hmm.
So if you find yourself engaging in some kind of hate, there was something you love, maybe something you miss. So dig into yourself, figure out what that is, kind of heal.
Look at yourself. It's okay to look at yourself.
That's all the time. That's what we do in therapy, and that's why people don't like it so much. Like, oh, you're going to make me look at me.
It's hard.
It is hard, but guess what? I'm not looking at you with a judgment. How are we really looking at people?
To help them grow.
That's right. It's compassion.
It's compassion.
Yep. Yeah, there you go. Thank you, everyone, for being here. We appreciate it. This is a hard topic, kind of a little bit heavy, but there's a little laughter we got to have.
I mean, it's necessary. It's a. We try and make it as light as we can when we talk about heavy topics.
Absolutely, it's a heavy topic. But we're so glad you're here. Please remember, if you have questions, please submit those. We're here to help you. We love helping people.
Mm-hmm.
We hope this information helps you navigate things a little bit better through alienation. And thank you for being here, part of the Ation series. And keep moving forward, everyone.